right. Welcome back. You are on another episode of Cue the Mind, and I am your host, Quentin Harris. It's exciting to be back. This is episode 6, and the name of today's episode is The Mentor and the Malleable Mind. Again, that is The Mentor and the Malleable Mind. And this story kind of takes me over a wide range of my years, man. And it dates back to, it reminds me of when I was younger, 13 years old. I had an opportunity to caddy for Medina Country Club, which is a huge country club here in the Chicagoland area. It's actually on the outskirts of Chicago in a town called Addison. And so when I was 13, one of my peers hey, you should come and try out to be a caddy. It's all lottery based, and then they train you. And so, man, I remember showing up, man, easily 150 kids, man. I might have been one of two black kids in the room. And I was like, whoa. And, for me, I was already going to a private school, so this environment was familiar to me in that sense. But my name got called via the lottery. And I came back for a week. I did the training and, became a caddy, right? And that, for me, was a huge experience. But you fast forward a couple of years, 15 years old, there was a split in my family. My mom and my dad, eventually got a divorce, but this was right at the beginning phase of it. And there was a mentor that came in my life who, as a black man, was the first person as a grown-up that I knew who actually played the game of golf at somewhat of a high level. At least, had a handicap of maybe 4 to 5, which is, a big deal when you're talking about me with a handicap of probably plus 20, right, at the time. And so, he was seasoned within his career. He was a member of my mom's church, and he really became someone I was able to lean into. And he was able to pour into me his experience. And that followed me, to this day. Obviously, we're talking about 15. I'm on the cusp of turning 40 in a couple of months. So we're talking about 25 years ago. And he was one of the first mentors that I have physical memory of, as far as impact that has still lasted well into my adult years. And that has compounded over time. I can think specifically of 3 mentors that I've had in my 20s who tremendously impacted my career today. They're very much the reasons why I am in my careers. And even now, as I wrap up my 30s, I can think of very clear mentors who have helped adapt my way of thinking and help me become very flexible in my approach to different complex challenges or concerns or what have you that may come across on a day-to-day life. They have influenced the way that I approach those. They've influenced my attitude. There's an old saying that you cannot have youth and experience, but you can have youth and wisdom. And much of that comes through, in my opinion, the impact of a mentor. And so that is what brings us to this topic today, the mentor and the malleable mind. And so with that, we're going to lean right into our 4F formula breakdown: fact, fluency, function, and freedom. And so we're going to start off with that fact piece. What is undeniably true about the mentor and the malleable mind? And so when we think about malleability, just from a materialistic term, something that is malleable is something that when under pressure does not bend, or it does not break. Rather, it bends without breaking. So when you think about a blacksmith banging a piece of steel that just came out of that fire, he is able to mold that into the shape that he wants it to be in without it breaking. It will bend, but it will not break. So when we think about that from a human perspective, malleability means flexibility. It means choosing humility over pride. It means being adaptable. And that is very important when you think about just being a lifelong learner and someone who is ambitious and wanting to accomplish various things in their life. It is very important to be malleable. There's peer-reviewed research consistently showing that individuals who report having mentors experience higher compensation, stronger career satisfaction, and most importantly, increased self-efficacy compared to those who do not. And when I was doing research, there was multiple peer reviews dating back, to the 90s all the way up through the 2010s, in which like there was consistent research showing that, hey, look, those who have had mentors have reported all of these various things. But on top of that, not just a career satisfaction, but they move in a way that is very much intentional and thought out. And a lot of that is because they have seen the road in many ways painted for them prior to being able to take that journey. And so, I think about in Chicago, we deal with a lot of potholes, especially during the wintertime. And if I know somebody that's taken a similar route to me and I come across a pothole, I might tell them like, hey, once you get to this point in the journey, watch out, there's a pothole there. I might not be able to pinpoint the exact spot, but they know like, oh, this is the area that Q said that there may be a pothole. Let me adjust my course. Let me get out of this lane, right? Let me do what I need to do to avoid that pitfall. That's what a mentor allows you to be able to do. So I can trace across my life, like back from my teenage years to through my 20s up until now, getting ready to cross 40, where mentors have shaped who I've become. Like I have to give credit to where credit is due. And so even going into my 40s, like mentors are folks who I am consistently recruiting into my life. As one may not make sense the way that they used to, it's time to find somebody else, because there's always someone who has trekked the path that you have not been on yet. And so being able to get that is pivotal. I cannot stress it enough. So we talked about fact. What about fluency? What deeper understanding must we develop here? And so understanding why mentorship shapes adaptability, one of the things that you have to understand is that mentorship in many ways is an experience that is borrowed from that mentor. And so what they're bringing to you is like, hey, this is what I went through. This is what worked. This is maybe what didn't work. This is what I would do differently. Maybe I would not do anything differently. And you're able to take that and apply it as you're approaching that same scenario. And so I don't want to jump ahead of myself here, but that's why having multiple mentors is even more beneficial, because if you're able to lean into multiple perspectives, then you can pull what fits best for you, right? And so when someone gives you insight before you face a situation, your nervous system is going to naturally respond differently to it, because you have the ability to rehearse it mentally. And so that is very, very important, to be able to just have a level of context prior to trying to assert yourself into your challenge. And so when I think about some of the mentors that I've had over my life, I talked about the gentleman early on. His name was Carl Swanson. He has now passed on. He passed on actually shortly after I met him, and which was a very, very tough time for me. But since then, I've had several mentors over the course of my career who were directly attached to a job that I had. In every single case, they were someone who at least had 8 or more years on me. I think about my brother, who has been a huge mentor in my life. I have first cousins, who have also been huge mentors. And I've also had women mentors. They have shaped and given me a perspective that is very much different from that of a man's. And I think it's important to find where that may make sense for you. I think oftentimes we think of mentorship as like, oh man, you need to, talk to another gentleman who's older than you. And while that may fit in my situation, there are also times within life and within a career, having a woman as a mentor is just as valuable, right? And I would say the same for women. Like there's things about womanhood that I would never understand that a woman will need to know as they continue to grow and mature. But there are definitely things that a man can provide to a woman in form of perspective that they may not be able to get for another woman. So mentors are not bound by gender in any form or facet. And so I think also keeping that in mind is very important. And so the folks who I mentioned are mentors that I could actually touch. But there are also mentors who you may not be able to touch. And so this whole podcast has been shaped around my literary inspiration in Robert Greene, right? And so that is a mentor that I cannot physically touch, but I have been impacted by his work. One who may not be as known as Robert Greene is Jason Wilson. I remember the first book of his that I read, Cry Like a Man. It really helped me tap into my vulnerable side as someone who was not very vulnerable. I did not open up very much. Cry Like a Man really allowed me to see what his experience was, see the path of his experience, take out the nuggets that applied to me, and it supported my growth. And then more recently, he just released a book last year called The Man the Moment Demands is the name of his other book. And so that book talks about the attributes that makes a comprehensive man. And so there were 10 different attributes in the book. And I would say, man, at least a good 7 of them like really hit home for me. Like, wow, every single thing I didn't think that I needed a complete overhaul on. There was definitely some things within that book that I was like, wow, this is a really great perspective. He's a gentleman that is 15 plus years my senior. And, his perspective is very valued. And so having mentors that expand in your physical space, but also those outside of your physical space is also very important. So mentorship is not always proximity, but it's the influence that it has on you over time. So we talked about fact, we talked about fluency. Let's move on to function. So function is like, how do we actually apply this learning? We figured out what the fluency part is. How do we apply that? So how do we identify and use a good mentor? So, let's try to make it as practical as possible. So what I did was I wrote down 4 things that for me has helped shape what I try to look for, at least in a mentor. So the first one is that they expand your thinking, not just affirm your comfort. Affirmations are great, but they expand your thinking beyond where you currently are. Like, they should stretch your comfort zone. The second one is they should model what they teach. Like, that alignment is really, really key. Like, don't just, there's a lot of people who spit a good game, but actions always speak louder than words. Number 3, they tell you the truth. Man, is nothing worse than someone who sugarcoats it. You ask them for advice and they tell you the things that they want to hear. What you want to hear is not going to get you to the next level. It's what the truth is that's going to get you to the next level. So a good mentor is going to tell you that, even when it costs them their own comfort. And so that's what helps them become a great mentor. And then lastly, they see your potential clearly. They're able to tell you like what lanes to stay out of, and they're able to tell you like, no, this is you. Like, dive in right here, like give it everything, like, risk it all on this area. This is where you're the strongest at. Hey, be careful with this. And so oftentimes they may see it before you. I think about a good friend of mine who was a huge mentor for me in my early 20s. His name was Joel, and he saw that I had a way with kids way before I did. I was just working hard. I was just like, man, I was always taught to give 110%, but he saw it went beyond that 110%, and he actually saw that you actually have a talent here, and he pushed me into my talent. He said, hey, man, lean into this. Like, there's other things that I was considering at the time. He said, lean into this. This is where it is, and here I am, almost 20 years later, have made a very successful career out of this, and what has led me to talking to you today. And so we talked about the 4 things that you want to look for and identifying that. And so, like, how do you then apply that mentorship proactively? So again, one of the important things that I was taught coming up, my brother told me this, is the 5 people that you hang out with the most is you. And so audit your current circle, who stretches you and who don't. If you are the leader of your friend group, then that means that you need to go to a friend group where you're not, where you might be at the bottom of the totem pole, because then at least if you're leading one group, you're able to pull on the coattails of another. So that's very important. Seek mentorship based on gaps and not convenience. And, we talked about that convenience piece in a previous episode, but where are your gaps at? Where are you weak at? And a good mentor is going to be able to help you identify those weaknesses, but also help you look for other gaps. And gaps don't always have to be weaknesses. It's just maybe areas that you need to fill. Diversify your mentors. So I already talked about gender, but experience and also industry. I try to keep someone who's within the industry that I'm in, but also someone that's in the far left, because you have to be tactical in both spaces. And so that is something that I've found to be extremely helpful, is to have someone that actually understands the work that you do, but also someone who can kind of look at you from from the outside in and be able to give you things that you may not have thought of as it pertains to what they do. And then lastly, whatever they give you, consume it in a way that makes sense for you. Consume it strategically. Don't just admire it, but figure out application. And so, of course, we're in that function piece. So figure out in what way will this function for me, so that way when you're doing it, you're actually seeing the results. Then from there, let's talk about freedom. What does this unlock for you internally? It should move you from being proud, operating out of ego. The whole idea of this is moving from being impulsive to intentional. So it should release you from impulsiveness. The more that you lean into a mentor, the more that you should be making intentional decisions and not those that come from a place of impulse. And then lastly, like, it should help you to avoid repeating mistakes over and over again. And to be quite frank with you, with a great mentor, it should keep you from having the first mistake. One of the things that mentorship has allowed me to do as an entrepreneur is avoid a lot of the pitfalls folks do when they don't have that. I've been blessed to have a brother who's a full-time entrepreneur, two cousins who are full-time entrepreneurs, a third cousin who does entrepreneurship on the side of having a great career, right? And so they do not take it easy on me. When I bring ideas, when I bring different things to them, they lean into it and they like, hey man, don't do that. Or no, you're thinking along the right lines. And so I've been able to avoid a lot of pitfalls that many folks have because of the fact that they have not been able to lean into a mentor. And so I hope those resonated, man. We're going to just quickly go back over our 4F formula one more time. So for fact, remember, mentors increase that malleability. And so, having a mentor has been proven for folks to have greater career satisfaction, greater earnings over time. We also talked about that they are going to advocate for themselves. And so that's what you're going to get from a mentor. And then from a fluency perspective, just really understanding that mentorship is their borrowed experience. And so what you're leaning into is the value that they have to bring. And so that's what we have to learn. So as soon as you realize, like, man, their experience is gold, man, see if they wouldn't mind being a mentor. See if you can, once a month, take them to lunch, get them a coffee, spend 15 to 20 minutes on a call where you bring them some real stuff like that they can help you work through. Don't just get on the phone to talk, like have a real challenge that they can help you kind of parse out. And then from a function standpoint, we talked about how to recognize a good mentor. So again, really quickly, they help expand your thinking. They're going to model what they teach. Number 3, they're going to tell you the truth. And then lastly, they're going to really see what potential you bring to the table. And they may even identify that before you identify it. And then lastly, what does mentorship unlock, or what does this lock from a stance of freedom? Man, it releases you from pride. It releases you from making impulsive decisions, and it keeps you from making avoidable mistakes. All right, so that is our 4F formula for today. Now we're going to lean into the Scriptural Lens as well as the Robert Greene lens, and then lastly, the POS Model lens. And so Proverbs, I got to love it. So from Proverbs, we're looking at Proverbs 11 and 14. Where there is no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Now, safety doesn't always mean that it's going to be easy, but what it does mean is it's going to provide you with the level of stability in making that decision, to where, like, one of the things that I've been able to do is when I've made a decision that was given to be by a mentor or two, if the road got a little rocky, I can lean back into my mentor like, hey, man, I kind of moved on this advice that you gave me. But this is what the challenge that I'm running up against. What do you think? And again, they have gone down this road and they can help you identify the pitfalls before they come. Now, from a Robert Greene's lens, in his book Mastery, he explains apprenticeship, right? And apprenticeship is the season where we submit to learning before we lead. And so take on an apprenticeship. My good friend Russell, he wanted to get into videography, and he just had a love for it. He's like, man, I really want to work a camera. And we have another good friend known as for his artistry. His name is Young Blaze, but his name is Maurice Clopton. And he's been in videography for years, man, the last 2 decades, if not more. He's been in entertainment. He's been in filmmaking. He just released his 4th film, if I'm not mistaken. I went to his premiere last year back in October. But Russell went to Maurice and basically said, hey, let me help you. And I'm willing to help you for free because I want to learn. And man, he did that for roughly 18 months, just showing up. His first film project, he was a co-producer or a co-director in it. And he started really gaining some skills, and to the point where, like, man, he's one of the better videographers that I know. He did my wedding and he did an amazing job of it. And so he took on an apprenticeship, and now he's able to lead. And so it's very important that we find that. And this helps that malleability, because now he has, in many ways, a mentor for life, because of all that time he invested with his mentor. He can go like, hey, man, you taught me this. This is what's going on. I'm struggling here. And he's going to be willing to pour into you because he sees the level of input and the level of discipline and the level of sacrifice you're putting to become better at your craft. So it's very important. Always be willing to be the apprentice before you are the master. Now, let's look at the POS model. What does the POS model say about this? This is going to hit all 4 items on the POS model. So spirituality, academics, health, as well as social emotional learning. So if we were to start from spirituality, like, counsel is divine protection when you boil down to it. You already saw that it says in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. That is your divine protection. Then we move over to academics. We already know that our posture is that we want to be lifelong learners. So how much more can you be a lifelong learner if you're utilizing a mentor, right? So they just go hand in hand. Then from a health side, it reduces anxiety because you're prepared. You have a prepared perspective. So you're reducing the anxiety, and then you move over into the SEL component. Adaptability, emotional awareness, reflective thinking, all those things that we've kind of already previously talked about, removing ego and pride, helping you just to be humble and grounded. So having those mentors allows you to be malleable in these places, and it builds emotional elasticity. And so it helps you be able to stretch, and you're less likely to be offended when a mentor pushes you in a way that might feel a little bit of friction. Because you built that relationship, right? And you're the whole reason why you're there is for them to stretch you. And so it's very important. So, man, we've looked at the 4F formula. We've looked at our scriptural lens. We looked at our Robert Greene's lens, our POS model lens. And so we always wrap up with what is the personal and the business development component of this particular episode. So personally, we always want to leave with 2 reflection prompts. So personally, ask yourself this: who currently speaks into your blind spots? Who helps you see what you might not be seeing? Then lastly, where am I rigid because I lack guidance? Like, I've met a lot of folks that are like stuck in a particular way, and I may not be that person for guidance for them because we're peers, right? And so essentially we're at the same place in the road, and I might have a different skill set, but for them, they may not be fully convinced that I am the one to give them what they need. And so are you rigid because you don't have anyone helping you see certain things about yourself? And then as a journal prompt, ask this: where in my life do I need to become more bendable? Right? Just reflect on that for the week. You know, whether it's a journal prompt, whether it's something that you just ask yourself every morning, Maybe even ask your peer, maybe even ask a boss, ask someone that you look up to you. Hey, where in my life can I become more bendable? Professionally, as a leader, build advisory boards, invite feedback loops, mentor others, teach reinforcive learning, right? Things that can be reinforced. So that's how you create that malleability within your team and with those that you work with. And then within entrepreneurship, seek mentors in areas you've never operated. And so like one of the things that recently, my brother is an entrepreneur now just over 10 years, and I've been one for just over 5 years, right? And so I've been talking to him about expanding my marketing. And like, hey man, like I want to start generating more leads. Like up till now, a lot of my work has been on a referral basis. Like I'm thinking about lead generation. And so he was able to give me input in a lane that I have not fully stepped into yet. And so it is very important to have someone in spaces where you've never operated, and then pay for rooms that stretch you. We got to invest in ourselves. And so every mentor may not be free. Some you may have to invest in. And so as an entrepreneur, you have to figure out a way to get that learning. And remember, speed without counsel creates fragility. And so you don't want to break under pressure. Don't always move fast. Sometimes you got to slow it down, take it slow, get the counsel that you need. That will make you stronger over time. So that is today's episode. We're going to move into our closing reflection. But one of the things that, I really thought about, like as I look back over my life, the different conversations that I've had, the different places that I've been, man, I would not have gotten here if it was not for the mentors that have helped shape me. And so I realize now I wasn't just growing. In many ways, I was being shaped by those who held somewhat of a level of influence over my life. And, it always starts at home with your parents. But as you move into the adult world, you start to resonate with other people. And don't take that for granted. If someone is able to pour into you, lean into it, man, because that is going to be pivotal. I mean, even as a husband, like, you got to lean into folks who've been doing it way longer than you. Like I didn't have a blueprint of what success looked like within marriage. And so it's important to have a mentor to be able to speak to those areas that I may be either blind at or I have not yet operated in. So it's very important. So again, ask yourself in this next season that you're going through, am I rigid or am I malleable? Because the difference between breaking and bending might just be the counsel you choose to keep around you, and also the peers that you keep in your circle. Because remember, top 5 people you hang around is a reflection of you. So I hope this episode was very, very helpful. You are on the Q with Q, and as always, you're still on Q. Talk to you later. See you next time.